Well, good afternoon everybody, it's me here again, and today I want to discuss 6 reasons why Jehovah's Witnesses believe they are the only religion that gets the tick of approval from the big man. Yes, when I was a witness, obviously, that people would say that on your doors. Well, how come? How come you think that God favours your religion and not the belief I belong to? And there were different reasons that would come back, and I picked 6 that at that time I would have used. Now, I don't think these figures with these particular points have changed. There may be others, but these are the 6 that I would have used at that time. Right, so coming in at number 6 would be the example that you'd say, well, what proves that God really backs our organisation is our increasing in numbers. Now, I can remember in '75 it reached 2 million, and it was quite big news. Finally, they'd got it from 1 million into 2 million, and it was big news. And I think maybe 2 years later they'd lost 30,000, but I wonder why. But anyway, so it's quite a big figure, and you think about it. Now they're up to 8.5 million. So even now it sounds even better. It's not just 2 million; it's like 8.5 million Jehovah's Witnesses worldwide. And if you think the figure's been achieved from basically 2 guys with a beard and a woman with a beard. I'm sure she had a beard. Back at the end of the 19th century, it is amazing that in, I don't know what, 130, 40 years, whatever it's been, that now you get one guy with an idea, and then obviously at that point you get enough people to believe in that idea that there has been an increase. But 8.5 million sounds a really a tremendous figure. But if you think about it, I'm trying to think of another religion that was very similar to counter that. There's another religion you can look at, which was around by 1830, and that's the Church of the Latter-day Saints, otherwise known as the Mormons. They worldwide now have got twice that figure. I think they're about 16, 17 million. And it's the same thing, it's exactly, you get one guy who's got an idea, you get enough people to believe that idea, and then you convince your children, and then they grow up and convince their children, and they grow up and they convince their children. Naturally, you're going to see, that it's spreading out till eventually, if you go 150 years later on, or 130, whatever it is, you do end up with that figure into the millions. And the difference with Jehovah's Witnesses as compared to the Mormons, of course, if their belief system was just a case of just join us, we're a very Christian organisation, and we like to discuss Bible things and get on very well with each other. But of course they come back with say, if you don't join us, you're going to be put to death. So there's more, I would have thought, if somebody's hitting you with the Armageddon reality instead of this cart nonsense that we see these days. Back in those days, you'd see an increase where somebody's actually putting you, oh, by the way, your religion is completely wrong, mine's right, and if you don't come over and join us, you'll be put to death. So there's an incentive if you ever need one to try and bolster the numbers. So anyway, there's that point. Now, the second point, which is point number 5, I'm doing a countdown here, is the magnificent property portfolio which the organisation has. And, it's bizarre to actually brag that we couldn't have, these wonderful buildings all around the world without the guidance of God. If it wasn't for God, we couldn't have the vast property portfolio that we have. All these lovely, lovely buildings, all decked out really nice, and in some of the key areas where you want them to be in the world. And well, that sounds that sounds quite plausible. Until you think about other people who also have, large property portfolios, well, for instance, the Mormons, who have lots of lovely properties, and I think they call them temples. I think they call them, and it's the same sort of thing. They have a lot of temples, a lot of big complexes, especially in Utah. Bizarrely, if you look at the Scientologists, some lovely buildings and some nice areas. Donald Trump, he has a large property portfolio. Are we to say that Donald Trump has been especially blessed by God, and that's how he's got property portfolio all over the world, including even Scotland? If that's the case, I'd really expect maybe Donald Trump to be so blessed by Jehovah God that he may become the most powerful man in the... Oh my shit! He already is the most powerful man in the world, so clearly God must be blessing him. Or is it Satan? I'm confused. And then you get like the Chinese have been, you know, got very wealthy Chinese at the moment who are buying up properties in most capitals in the world, and the Russian oligarchs as well. So are we to say that if you have a large property portfolio, that means that God is behind the purchasing of these properties? No, it means one thing and one thing only, that you have a little bit of that. You know, that's the only reason. So it isn't God's blessing, it's because you have enough people pouring money into the coffers to do that. And of course now it's coming in, and then of course it's going out again because they're having to pay off or settle the court cases which are ongoing as we speak. So down to number four. They say that if it wasn't for God's blessing and their backing, the organisation wouldn't be as organised and as efficient as they currently are. They say just look at our publications, look how we make them, look how we distribute them, you know, just look at how we go into a assembly hall, or sorry, football stadium, more the case. We clean it beforehand, we take care of it during the convention, and then we'll give the stadium back to whoever owns the football stadium cleaner than it was before. We do so many great things. We can, you know, build a kingdom hall in a day. You know, you couldn't have that sort of efficiency and organisation skills unless there is God, you know, backing you. Well, let me think of somebody else. Let me think of another group of people who are very organised and very efficient, and they were called the Nazis. Yes, the Nazis were really organised and efficient in many different areas, and they efficiently marched into most of Europe and then organised the march out, or the train journey out, of most of the Jews that lived in those European countries, and then systematically and using great organisation skills and efficiently killed millions of them in a short space of time. So are we to say that God was behind the Nazis because they were organised and efficient? Are we? Doesn't make much sense really. And just on this final point is that we'd be living in a different world today if there wasn't that something called the English Channel. Otherwise the Germans would have, the Nazis would have marched into Great Britain, D-Day wouldn't have happened, and probably I'd be speaking German at the moment. Anyway, so we're on to point number 3. Now this is one, you know, I used to use an awful lot of the time, was of course 1914. As we know, the Jehovah's Witnesses make a big deal out of the fact that they and they alone were the only organisation at the time, when they were known as the Bible students, who were telling people something's going down at 1914. Something is really going to happen in 1914. Yes, they were right, something really big did happen in 1914, but it wasn't what they thought was going to happen. How did it get to 1914 anyway? There's some spurious measurements on the Great Pyramid, you know, which has now completely been debunked and forgotten about by the witnesses, even though it was, you know, it was their measurements, blah, 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 blah. 1914. Amazing. You know, and this is a pyramid, but, you know, Pharaoh didn't believe in God, in opposition to God. Why would God even use somebody who was engaged in false worship to foretell the future in 1940? It makes no sense at all. And of course, there's that old nutshell of when you think about, they always come up with the destruction of Jerusalem in 607 BCE. The only people who believe that Jerusalem was destroyed in 607 BCE, of course, are the Jehovah's Witnesses. So you get to the date 1914 by two dodgy methods. Yes, something did happen in 1914, but it wasn't what they thought was going to happen. In 1914, I think they all thought they were going to ascend to heaven. No, they were still there in 1915, 1916. I think they thought it was going to happen in 1919X. And yes, it doesn't actually pan out. And of course, all the subsequent years, I think there was like 26. And of course, let's not talk about 75, but we could do if we really wanted to do. Also about the millions now living would never die, the end of that generation approaching the late 80s. So basically, yes, you got 1914 right. We don't know how you got to 1914 because that's really debatable. What you thought was going to happen in 1914 didn't actually happen, and every subsequent guesstimate has been wrong. Need to take this call. And I'm back. So let's go down. That was number 3. Let's go down to number 2. Number 2. Now this is a big one, and it's still getting used today. It's persecution. that old chestnut of Jesus said, if they persecute me or hate me, they'll persecute you or hate you as well. And apparently, you know, this is what Jehovah's Witnesses always say. They always say, well, look who was in the concentration camps with the Jews. It was the Bible students or Jehovah's Witnesses. Look at the way that we've been banned, even recently being banned in Russia. Look how we're banned in many, many other countries. And, you know, this proves it. You know, God said that he would persecute, you know, he'd allow persecution on his true followers. And if we weren't getting persecuted, you know, how could we would say we were his true followers? And yeah, it seems very plausible, you know. Yeah, I used to say that myself, you know, blah, 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 blah. But let's think about another group of people, not Jehovah's Witnesses, who also have been persecuted for their, especially their religious beliefs. And not just persecuted over the past 120 years, but have been persecuted for a few thousand years. And that group of people are called the Jews. Now, of course, the Jews are the group of people who famously, what did they say? I think they had Jesus or Barabbas, Jesus, Barabbas, Jesus, Barabbas. You know, they famously, you know, were going to release one man and they let Barabbas go, and Jesus ended up getting crucified, or well, the witnesses don't see him crucified, but he got put to death anyway. And then, of course, you know, you have the fact that they denied he was the Messiah. The New Testament doesn't exist to them, and subsequently they've got a bad rap, and also they've been literally abused, persecuted, put to death, expelled in country after country, you know, for thousands of years. Even in Britain, King Edward I, who was also known as the Hammer of the Scots, he was the guy who famously came up to Scotland and laid waste to Scotland, and eventually William Wallace hung, drawn and quartered. That Edward I, the Hammer of the Scots, he had all the Jews expelled in England during his reign. And obviously, you know, this happens time and time again when you look at medieval Europe, especially because, of course, the Jews were, you know, nobody really liked them anyway because they didn't believe in Jesus Christ and the Saviour and all that stuff. But of course, they had the money, so you expel them, you take back their property, you make sure that they can't take the money with them, and so it bolsters the royal coffers. And this has been going on for a long, long time, the persecution of the Jews. So if any religious group would want to say, look, this absolutely proves that we are God's chosen people, it's got to be the Jews. Well, what happened in World War II? Millions of them put to death because they were Jews. So if any religious group has a right to say that they've been persecuted more than any other, and clearly that shows that God's backing them, it's got to be the Jews. You know, but it's not just the Jews who've been persecuted. We know that in the Muslim faith, that's been, you know, they've been split in two, and each different group persecutes each other. They just go in, you know, just the other week, a wedding, and boom, and, you know, 70 odd people dead. They go into each other's mosque and boom, and there's 150 people dead. It keeps on going on and on and on. We've had Christians and Muslims and Hindus and Buddhists, still at this moment, they are getting killed in churches in Asia, all their time in their temples and their synagogues or whatever it is. It's happening all of the time. You know, literally the death toll it's I don't even want to go into the figures. Even in America, in the past 5 years, there have been 2 different churches have been attacked by, you know, either a disgruntled ex-member or somebody who's just gone in and just, you know, literally mowed everybody down. There's about 35 people died in the last 2 years in 2 different churches in America. So it isn't just Jehovah's Witnesses who have been persecuted. You know, just showing that it's happening today to a lot of other religious groups. Even the Mormons, when they first started off, got persecuted, and I think even Joseph Smith got lynched, I think, as well. You know, they never did that to Charles A. Russell. No, I'm sure the witnesses would love if Charles A. Russell got lynched for his beliefs, but even Joseph Smith got lynched. And, you know, it's so often that this does happen. You get a, religious group starts off, and local people don't like it, and they get persecuted, not just Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, the thing about this, more than anything else, which really, really disturbs me. Why should it be a badge of honour that your religious group gets persecuted? Let's think about this, for instance. Let's just go back to the 1st century CE. What happened to the majority of the apostles? You know, beheaded, burned, crucified, hung upside down. You know, that none of these guys reached an old age. What about all the 1st century Christians? You know, they were beheaded, burned, crucified, hung upside down, and put into gladiatorial arenas and tore apart by wild animals. I'm not joking. You know, think about it. Imagine if you were a Jew back then, and then all of a sudden you think, you know, someone tells you, oh, this is the Messiah we've always waited for. Great. Oh, he's dead. Oh, shit. The next thing is, oh, but he was the Messiah because he came back. Great. Oh, he's gone again. Oh, shit. You know, and it's this sort of thing. You have to think to yourself is, you know, what do I do? Well, if he was the Messiah, okay, I believe you. And the next thing is, by believing in, becoming a Christian back then, it was really a death sentence. You may as well just said, you know, kill me now. It's really, really bizarre. You know, if you think about God, you know, and this is before Satan was cast to the earth and being really, really mischievous with with all the things he could use. Why would God, especially at this time, when he really, really wanted his son's new brand of religion to really kick off and get starting, why didn't he protect these guys? Why didn't he protect these guys? It's really odd. They just survived. You know, just about survived, these guys. It's really odd. I would prefer. Now you think about what happened to the Jews. Let's think of the Jews, what happened when they were with Egypt, with Pharaoh. And God was through Moses, was trying to prove who was the top God. Is it the God of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, as Moses was saying? Or is it going to be, you know, all the different gods of the pharaohs? And of course there was this thing, you know, Marfrags and, you know, the gadflies and, you know, all the water and all that shit. And then the next thing has happened. Pharaoh still wouldn't believe it. And so God decided, in the sort of loving way that he does these things, the loving way he deals with people like this who are a little bit stubborn, instead of maybe just, you know, killing his son, you know, to just teach him a real, you know, lesson, or just, why didn't he just appear in front of him? Why didn't, you know, we've had all the instances where God does appear, you know, the old finger and, you know, the little burning bush and that sort of stuff. Why didn't God just appear in front of Pharaoh and say, Pharaoh, I'm God. None of your God's going to appear in front of you. This proves that you need to let my people go. But no, he broke the man's heart by having his first son put to death. He could have just had Pharaoh's first son put to death, but decided to, well, I tell you what, in for a penny, in for a pound, and let's just kill all the firstborn in this area of Egypt. I don't know how many died, but I'm sure it's more than 100, probably thousands or whatever, of innocent young guys who just and girls who just died, just so that God could prove a point to Pharaoh when only maybe one death would bring it off. If Pharaoh lost his son, you know, he says, your son's going to die tomorrow, I shall let my people go. Well then, you know, obviously he was grieving and was a bit mad. But that showed back then how God did protect his people. You know, when it came up as God versus the ruling class at the time, he would always come out big for his people. He always protected his people. But bizarrely, that sort of protection of late has not been seen. Even in the time of the 1st century Christians, was God protecting them? I don't think he really was, because most of them got torn apart from wild animals or got crucified, horrible deaths. You know, if somebody came to my door and said, you know, I want you to sign up for this new religion, oh, by the way, there's a good chance of you getting crucified. No thanks. You know, it's just bizarre. Why would God do this? So I don't understand why this whole thing exists, that God doesn't protect anybody, any group that allegedly represent him. He hasn't done it for at least 2,000 years, and just lets all these, you know, small groups who speak in the same larger experience to be persecuted everywhere. It's really, really odd. You know, why does God do this? Where's the protection? I don't understand this. I really don't understand it. Anyway, let's move on from that one and go to the very last one. We'll go to the very last one here, which is dealing with the one thing that Jehovah's Witnesses say more than anything else. So it is number one. It is in this week's number one of the thing which emphasises more than anything else that Jehovah is with Jehovah's Witnesses is this thing called love. this love that they have amongst themselves. If you ask any other Jehovah's Witness, any Jehovah's Witness, and say to them, what's your one redeeming quality that stands out, which makes you believe that that God is backing your religion and organisation, they say, well, it's the love that we have. I didn't have a demonstration of this before. I've joined this witness movement, and now I've seen love that I've never seen anywhere else before. Well, yeah, when I was there, I believe the same thing. I believe the same thing, and I kid you not, when you were at a district convention, and maybe it was the first day, and you're engaged in the quite emotional song, and we're all singing from the same hymn sheet, and you're all together, and that sense of unity, sense of purpose, and you singing along is something really gets you round about here. It really, you feel it. You feel the love. You feel the love. But it's not really love. That's actually, it's wrong to say you're feeling love. You're feeling something else, something really, really powerful. That sense of euphoria more than anything else. This, something that sometimes you will happen to you. And there's no rhyme or reason or explanation. It's some sense of euphoria that you feel without having to take drugs or drink or whatever it is. It's just, you just feel, yes, this is it. As you're singing your song, and sing out with joy in heart, and everybody else is joining you, then this is it. Right now in the world, this is the most important place to be in. Nothing's going to recapture this moment until the next district convention. This is it. This proves to me right now that this is indeed God's organisation, because I wouldn't be feeling like this at the moment if this wasn't God's organisation. This proves it to me. Well, how long does that euphoria last? The 3 days, absolutely. Driving home, back to your house, still buzzing. New publication, still buzzing. Worry about that talk, still buzzing. Still buzzing. Until you get back to your first meeting at the congregation, and you sit there and you look up, and it's Brother Dickhead Elder who is giving a talk, and Brother Twatface Elder who's on after him. These two guys you've never really liked. In fact, love's not the quality that you'd say that you have for them. It's probably akin to hate, really dislike. You have to, unfortunately, respect their position. Their position as being elder. You've been cancelled. Obviously, is to listen to the message, not to the man. But I'm looking at the man thinking, you're a hypocrite because you're telling us to do this, that, and the other, when you and your family do exactly the opposite. How dare you counsel us? How dare you give me private counsel? When clearly, you're not, you're talking the talk, but you're not walking the walk. And there's no love there. There's no love. You just have to put up with this. And there may be older sisters in the hall, the same thing, who are always commenting about, you and what you do, and they're just, just telling you things, when normally, in a normal sphere of anything, you just say, fuck off. But you can't, because they're a sister, and you're not showing them love. You're putting up with this. It's the same thing that you have to do when you work in a company, and you've got your line manager, and you've got your manager, and you've got your director, and all of them are twats. All of them are complete dicks. But unfortunately, because they're in that position, you have to respect the position, not the person. You never go up to any of these people and say, I tell you what, do you want to come bring your wife round tonight and come round to my house and let's have a meal? You never do that. Do you want to go out for a drink after work tonight? You wouldn't, because you can't stand these twats. You just unfortunately have to respect the position they're in. Love doesn't even come into it. You just have to respect the position, and you put up with their shite. Now that's exactly the same in congregations. There's lots of people in the congregation. I've been in like 5 different ones in my witnessy lifetime, and there's lots of people I'm sure didn't like me, and there's lots of people I didn't like, and most of them were like elders, right? Lots of them just complete twats. Didn't love them at all. The good thing about it was that when I was at the district convention, luckily they weren't in my line of sight. So while I'm feeling euphoric and as one, and here we go, luckily they're not there. Otherwise I'd be thinking, oh, what a twat. That's... It isn't love. It isn't love. And the thing about it is, I've been at football grounds as well, because most of the district conventions were held in football grounds that I went to, or rugby grounds. And I've been in football grounds and experienced that same unity, the one purpose, singing from the same hymn sheet. And that's at some key football matches that I've been to in football stadiums all over Europe. That sense of utter euphoria that you feel when your team has just won the Champions League in 2 minutes of injury time in the Nou Camp in Barcelona. You know, literally you want to hug your friend, you want to buy everybody a drink. Well, the Germans didn't want to hug because I was sitting with the Bayern Munich fans. They didn't really want hugs and kisses. But anybody wearing a United red top, you want to hug them. You don't know any of these people. At the end of the day, you didn't love any of these people. They were just, you were connected to them because you're all there for the same singular purpose, which is to see United win. So you knew, yeah, red top, United, the same witnesses, badge, Jehovah's Witness. It's the same thing. You walk out the stadium, you are buzzing, you are buzzy, you are euphoric. But I didn't love any of these guys. I didn't love any of them. You know, half of them are complete twats. Well, what have anything to do with them? I might have bought them all a drink that night because I was so euphoric, but a week later, nah. But that sense of euphoria continued on for days and days and days, and even when I see those goals getting scored in 1999, I still get that feeling in my tummy. I wish I could have captured the moment, but luckily for me I did capture the moment when we won it in penalties in 2009 when I was in Moscow, because I was videoing the whole thing. So if you want to hear a grown man screaming with utter euphoria and joy because his team's just won the biggest club trophy that you can win, just go onto my channel Tell and Benji and you'll see it there. Yeah, there's a lot of screaming, mostly by me, but the same thing, complete strangers hugging each other, euphoric, amazing, but it isn't love. You know, at that moment it was the most important place to be in the world for those two finals, and yet the thing about it is, more than anything else, is that you don't love the people, you love the shared experience. It's a completely different thing, and I've had the same shared experience at football grounds, when I've been to concerts where the band is playing, they're singing to you, 50,000 people are singing back to them, you are dancing with complete strangers, you're giving a complete stranger a bit of your drink, they're giving you some of your drink, you're hugging them, you know, well, not kissing them obviously, you're all singing as one, you're all singing the same hymn sheet, you all feel unified, and you all have the same sense of purpose. You're all there. That precise moment is the most important place to be in the world, as you're belting out this anthemic song to them and they're singing it back to you. And that euphoria lasts out of the stadium, in the car, up the road, and it can still be with you until you hire maybe a DVD, you know, the Blu-ray, put it on and you're back there again. But did I love those people in that stadium? Did they love me? No, we loved the experience. We love that same sense of, oh, I don't know what it is. That great feeling when you're with a lot of people and you're all experiencing it. So this thing with Jehovah's Witnesses, where they say that we have love and that stands us apart from any other organisation, complete, utter rubbish. They literally put up with each other, you know, literally do. I know, I was there long enough to see what goes down there. So it isn't love, it's a complete fallacy. So that's my thoughts on, you know, my top 6 reasons why Jehovah's Witnesses may believe that their organisation has been chosen by God, but very easily, if you ever meet a Jehovah's Witness, if they still come to the door these days, or if they're out carting and they go, oh my God, somebody actually wants to speak to me. If you ever meet them, you can, instead of dealing with real controversial, you know, let's keep away from some of those things, because straight away you're going to get their back up, and really you'd like to have a conversation with them. So you can just say to them, right, what convinces you that this, you know, your organisation really is God's organisation and not no other religion? And they will definitely cover some of those points, those 6 points that I've mentioned today. And it doesn't take, it shouldn't take very long for you to counter their points and maybe get them to think. And that's all, at the end of the day, that's all we want to do. We want to get Jehovah's Witnesses to just think about their reasoning for believing that it is the one true organisation, because as we all know, all ex-Jehovah's Witnesses who watch these videos, we all know it isn't. And I think it's upon us to try and help them who are still in it to realise that too, because I think it's quite important. Anyway, that's it. I hope you enjoyed my fast ramble, because I need to crack on and do a few things today. Oh dear, for those who can't pick me up because I speak very fast, I'm really sorry. Maybe I'll slow the next one down a little bit, but I like to really race through these things sometime when the iron's hot. Anyway, hope you enjoy the rest of the day. Here today in Scotland, it has been raining, it has been sunny, and now it's raining again. That's just here. Like I said before, I'm moving as soon as I can. I've had enough of Scotland. It's time to go to places a lot warmer, like South East England or South West England. No, it's too expensive. I can't live there either. It's going to be France. I'm moving to France. Anyway, see you later. Bye-bye.